Добрый вечер уже,
And I would like to
уважаемые
say good
слушатели.
evening
Надеюсь,
to
он
you
добрый,
now,
несмотря на то, что
ladies
понедельник.
and gentlemen.
Меня
Hope
зовут
this
Ират
evening is really
Мухамметшин.
good,
Я являюсь
despite it's
руководителем
Monday.
группы
I'm Irat
проектирования систем
Mukhametshin. I'm
защиты
head of
информации
the
СУТП
computer-aided
компании
manufacturing
«Навстречу».
protection
Сегодняшний
solutions
доклад
from the
будет
Inestage
сугубо
company.
инженерной
This
направленности,
particular presentation
практического
is
характера.
one of the
Посвящен
engineering
он
kind and
опыту внедрения
practical
решений информационной безопасности на
implementations
промышленных
of the
объектах. И, наверное, красной
cybersecurity
нитью
solutions
сквозь весь
at
доклад
production
пойдет народная
facilities.
поговорка
And
«Гладко
I'll
было на
be
бумаге, да забыли про овраги».
running through
Собственно,
this
доклад посвящен тому,
presentation,
как мы
bearing in mind that it
преодолевали
looks so
последствия
nice and smooth on paper, but
и
it looks
трудности, связанные с
it looks
внедрением
real
решений
rough in
информационной
real
безопасности,
life.
к
It
чему
was
пришли и, собственно,
all
выводы и
about
рекомендации.
overcoming all those numerous obstacles on the thorny way of
В
implementing cybersecurity
чем, собственно,
solutions in real
состоит
life.
проблематика?
What seems to be the
Очень
problem?
часто характерным явлением
Very often,
при внедрении решений информационной
when
безопасности на
such
промобъектах является
solutions
срыв
are
сроков внедрения.
implemented in
И
real
в
life,
этом докладе,
it
собственно,
goes beyond
постараемся
the
ответить на
deadline.
вопрос, можно ли
And
было это
the
избежать,
question is
а
whether it
если это
was
случилось, как
possible
быть и
to
что делать,
avoid,
то есть,
and if
грубо говоря,
not,
уже на месте.
what we're supposed to do
Доклад глобально состоит из 3 частей.
in such a
Первый – это
situation.
аналитический
And
блок.
my
Здесь мы
presentation is
погружаемся в
made up
отраслевую
of three
специфику,
parts. First of all, it's the
рассматриваем
analytics.
причины и
I'll speak about
предпосылки
the
к
industry specifics,
возникновению
the
нежелательных для
prerequisites and the causes
интегратора явлений.
for the
Собственно, вторым блоком пойдет это
incidents of
разбор
this
практики
kind. And
внедрения, то
then,
есть рассмотрение
second of all, I
непосредственно
will speak
случая на
about some
производстве.
practical implementations, and
Будут примеры с
I
больших
will be having
строек,
some case
больших
studies
объектов, с
from
действующих
bigger
и новых
fields,
производств.
bigger sites,
И третий
and
блок, собственно,
smaller ones. And the third one,
итоговый, он
third part
посвящен выводам, рекомендациям
is a kind of a summary
и далее.
and
Если
recommendations.
возникают вопросы по ходу доклада, их
If
можно
you have
адресовать
questions during the
уважаемым
course of my
модераторам
presentation, you
секции,
can
и
send
в
them to
конце
the
доклада я
moderators. In
постараюсь,
the end,
насколько
I'll
возможно, на
try
них
to
ответить.
take your questions if possible.
Итак,
So,
что же
what are
является
the
факторами, предпосылками,
prerequisites and
то
factors
есть чем
for
так принципиально производственный объект отличается, скажем, от офисного или корпоративного инфраструктуры,
industrial
офисного и корпоративного секторов?
facilities that make them
Первое
so
это
different from
самое
offices, for
первое это
instance?
режимность и повышенные
First of all,
требования
it's
безопасности.
the
То есть часто
access
работа
control
производится
and
как на
high
объектах, попадающих под 116 федеральный
security
закон о промышленной
requirements,
безопасности,
because
то
the
есть в
federal
общем,
law
чрезвычайно
on
опасных объектах,
federal
так и на объектах
of industrial
электросетевого
security
комплекса.
provides limited access, restricted access
То
to
есть при формировании
such
плана работ
production
уже
facilities.
требуется изначально большие сроки закладывать для реализации тех или
Longer
иных стадий внедрения.
time frame initially is
Взаимозависимость технических
put
решений информационной
into
безопасности, автоматизации, но здесь
scope.
понятно, то есть пока,
Then
собственно, комплекс автоматизации производства,
interchangeability of
являющийся
the
объектом защиты,
technical solutions of
безопасности не налажен,
cybersecurity and automation,
внедрять, опробировать и тестировать решения информационной
taking
безопасности
into account
несколько
and testing
Соответственно,
cybersecurity
если что-то
when it's not
меняется в
compatible, doesn't make
комплексе
much sense.
автоматизации, это
If something
неизбежно
changes
влечет за
in
собой
the
изменение
automation
решений
solution,
по
it
информационной безопасности,
inevitably
то
entails
есть уже на
the
этапе и
changes
строительно-монтажных, и пусконаладочных
in
работ. То
the
есть это уже объективная
course
данность.
of the
Так как
installation
решения
work
информационной безопасности внедряются
and
после решений
commissioning.
по автоматизации, имеет место быть накопительный эффект
Sometimes
ошибок и изменений.
there is the accumulative
Что часто
effects
приводит
of
к
all these
необходимости
mistakes and
искать совсем
changes,
нетривиальные решения, сидя в
which
серверной
leads us
на
to finding or
строящемся либо
looking for
уже
rather a very
функционирующем технологическом объекте.
non-trivial solution
И опять-таки деятельность по
at the
информационной
construction
безопасности
site.
прибыль не генерирует,
And also these
соответственно, производственные
activities on
процессы.
cybersecurity do not generate profit.
Так, минутку.
Irat will have to switch to the Russian channel so that we will avoid having the echo, which I had forgotten to do previously.
Так, сейчас режим выйду. Сейчас минутку.
Hold on a minute, I'll try to do it.
Режим.
there is a globe-like looking button which you need to engage and choose the Russian channel. I think it's done. It's okay, thank you very much. Oh, there was a small technical issue, but we would like to continue. So where did I stop? So it does not generate profit, and the production is always in the foreground. So I would like to say that first and foremost, production facilities would require very, very stringent time frames and deadlines. Very often financial realities do not align properly with production. The timelines are expanding, the deadlines are pushed beyond the scope of a contract, and contracts are made up to be completed within one financial year. But normally this keeps on being postponed and extended. So this extension requires quite a lot of effort and does not influence the process positively at all. Then we'll consider principal differences between corporate segment versus technology. If we have to talk about the organization of this work, it's much more difficult to get access to work in such industrial facilities. Very often you would have to start the permission process of you being let into the facility beyond the realms of the facility and only on specific times. When these solutions are related to business critical, production critical processes, it all complicates this whole process. The more stakeholders get involved into it, it's getting more difficult to come to terms with the staff working there, with the personnel. It depends on the schedule of the production. We are limited with the downtime or the planned downtime time frame. And there is also the divided responsibility areas. For example, if we are talking about the power supply of the big production facilities, there may be high voltage power generation units reporting to the state-owned monopolies of the Russian Federation. To conduct work in such facilities, you'll just need to have yet another supreme permission to get access to. So the integration of these protection measures before the installation and production starts, we very often see limited information, and you have to be very careful about providing the security protection means like firewalls, etc. You have to accumulate the statistics of such means in practice so that you can forecast the behavior. You have to accumulate the statistics of the firewall being put in the routing mode and the rule mode. Sometimes it would take up to a few months to accumulate the statistics of the interconnections so that we avoid blocking business critical processes in this whole bunch of processes. And very often in oil production facilities and oil refining facilities and petrochemical facilities, the physical condition of such facilities also becomes very important, because it may be revamped and it may be modernized during the course of the installation. So you have to be very careful about testing the settings, the security settings, and you'll have to pay very close attention to the use of the resources. And you'll have to think about launching such solutions on these ARM solutions, which dates back like 10 years, and you'll have to take into account some obsolete hardware on site. The existing production and the greenfield, there may be difference with the brownfield from greenfield. On the brownfield, we may be limited with the planned downtime timeline. If we are talking about power generating units and power lines, there is restrictions of access. Sometimes you'll have to consider work at numerous facilities. And if we have limited access to that, it is put in the so-called regime mode, and you'll have to work with lots and lots of instructions imposed, plus the fact we have this notorious virus, which is yet another problem of 2020. Greenfield versus brownfields. Of course, the time to put this facility in production may be different. For the brownfields, there are plenty of subcontractors operating, trying to tune up the production facility as such, and also the telecommunication systems, etc. We are neighboring with such companies and we work with them jointly. Sometimes there is a little awareness of stuff about the infrastructure. So in other words, when the production facility is not yet put in production, the staff that operates there has very limited information about the infrastructure of the facility and its components. If the security system is implemented all across the board, this information is crucial, but very often we don't have it, or we have it in limited amount. I would like to now take a few case studies, a few examples, the first one being a refinery. And technically speaking, that project, while being implemented, it was not particularly hard. What we did have was have the implementation of the solution on the whole unit, on the whole facility, also at the catalytic cracking unit and steam generation plant. That catalytic cracking unit was one of the most recent ones employed, and we used one contractor, one developer of the security solutions, antivirus protection, and there were two sites, and there were two developers of the computer-aided manufacturing solutions. So we really did have a few problems at the preparation stage when we were not having the support of the steam generation equipment. We also needed testing that solution with the CAM experts, and we also learned about the unplanned resumption of production after the planned downtime. Without the technological support, having the proper functionality of the network was getting impossible. And the testing of the antivirus could not be started because it should have been done during the course of the technological downtime, stopover. So before the launch at the power station, steam power station, we started having information about the vulnerabilities, but they were getting out of that phase, and they were going to start the production just the day after. So we would have to wait for yet another scheduled, planned stopover, and we'd have to stretch out our work for 2 years. It was considered to switch that to the newly developed firewall solutions, and we started having that when the Catholic cracking unit had already been put into production, which helped us develop that plan in a more thorough way. But I should say that the work was done successfully. Of course, we were late, much later, but the system was still adopted and put into production. The next example I would like to show you is the new greenfield power generation unit and power telemechanics, control, automatics, and communications. They were the part of our work. There were 4 contractors, 2 services from the customer, and 1 general contractor, the main contractor. What we faced with was the long legal process of aligning everything when the automation facility was put into production. It was difficult to influence people to work on cybersecurity on time. So we would have to do a lot of work just sitting there in real time. And CAM solution was being implemented when the automation systems were put into production already. That's what we actually faced in the tuning phase. We revealed a new communication channel which had not been provided initially. So we would have to change the specifics of the protection requirements. So we would have to change the rules for firewall rules, and we changed the IP addressing scheme as a result. And the implementation of these telemechanic systems went far away, went far ahead. The automation guys did their work and they left home, so would have to continue communication with them on the phone, which complicated it quite a lot and slowed the whole process down. While the security solutions were being implemented, some part of the unit had been put into generation mode, in the power generation mode, just like at that time. So what did we have in the long run? We were late. We were 4 months late. It was not so critical as the refinery, but those were very difficult 4 months. Still, that the protection system was put into production, was accepted, but this unbalanced work, aligning of all of the processes between the contractors was a challenge, really. We would have to change everything on the fly, on the go, and we would agree on everything locally with the local dispatcher unit. So to dedicate to make the slot available for our work, we would have to file an application to make them allocate this service slot for your operations no later than 2 weeks prior. But at that time, the customer would already be having some financial losses. So that application was a fee-based one. And yet another example, petrochemical facility. It's a greenfield, so we would have to design the cybersecurity solution there and InfoSec solution. Also the launch of the 500 kilovolt substation, which was which was all controlled by the federal authorities. That facility had already been put into production. The modernization had started. Temporarily, networks were established. They were decisions to make temporary solutions for cybersecurity's licenses had been obtained and activated. So the timer had already started clicking for the license to expire. And it was all really heterogeneous. Initially, the requirements had not been thought of properly in the documentation. It was mentioned just that such measures should have been provided, and that's it. So each contractor, each designer of the automation solutions would have to make their own approach within the boundaries of their competence. So we really did end up having so many heterogeneous protection solutions. More than 70 firewalls had been provided, for instance. And the protection means were included, were provided by each contractor. So initially, we started having quite a lot heterogeneous solutions. So the first task was to actually change that and make sure that it works, meeting the requirements, uniform requirements, so that we would be able to call this a working system. Before it led to the actual implementation, that particular facility had already been put in production. Some units were already being put into production. From the temporary stage, the facility was changing into a permanent one, and the customer was having a stringent requirement of the maximum utilization of the existing infrastructure. Also would have to align on the security mechanisms, alignment with the developers, and industrial management system requirements were of a critical kind. And the temporarily loss could not last for more than 10 minutes. It was really a tough requirement. And we had to face this matching of that whole system with the requirements of the industrial protocol. Later, I will speak about that. We did utilize various firewall protection solutions, but we reduced them to just a few of them, and we would be switching them on a stage-by-stage way. We had agreed on that with the CAM manufacturers. So with the organization, we did not enter a contract, but we agreed with them on that, and we resolved that issue. As far as the industrial protocol requirement meeting, we would have to find a decision on the fly while we were sitting at the facility. This project is still being implemented. It's not complete yet, but the infrastructure has been put to a uniform standard. If we take a look that from production facility to production facility, we use different means of protection, but the actual architecture was made uniform, transparent, and understandable. We have brought everything up to standard, and we have agreed on settings. As far as the architecture is concerned and the interaction with the industrial protocols, it was done by using an ERP protocol, the parallel one. It's a very specific one, PRP protocol, which is delivers the data packets, the guaranteed delivery of the critical data packets. That's what this PRP protocol stipulates. So we have managed to reach this top level interaction by using the PRP protocol. And the actual developer would not recommend the use of the PRP protocol for info security purposes, because this protocol stipulates that we'd build two networks which are completely independent, and they would utilize traffic in them. Which branch is the first, then the second one will not be needed, or vice versa. But that's for automation services. That's a kind of a backup solution. So we would have to have the consistent data transfer, reliable performance, and fault tolerance. And two independent networks with that were backing up each other for data transmission were used. It seemed to be a problem, and seems like that PRP protocol was the only one that we could utilize. It was not a mistake or a design flaw, because they were just not thinking about info security issues, but they were just resolving the technology tasks. But we would have to utilize PRP protocol just for cybersecurity purposes. That was a complication here, but we had launched two virtual clusters. We found a solution, that's what I mean. One of the physical firewall, one of the virtual cluster one. We virtually divided the flows. We had attached a switch stack for that cluster, and one virtual cluster would be targeted at data. We would be launching this seamless data transfer, and that's a tested option. It runs, it works, and so far we have not had any complaints about it. So we did it. And what would be the summary of all I've been saying? I think we can make a few conclusions. Seems like that the contractors are different, but the infrastructure is the same one. So the important question here is the interconnected integration of the solutions. The integration tools pose some limitations. For example, we have restricted access, we have architecture limitations, protocol limitations, like I mentioned previously. It could be resolved by a very exact and precise stipulation of the requirements to the info security, cybersecurity, not just the functions of the cybersecurity tools, but to the actual infrastructure. And automatically we remove the problems related to the system integration, because sometimes out of 6 free ports at a switch, only 2 become available. So I think it may be easier just to stipulate some redundant, some redundancy at the design phase before you actually start installing it. And also we need to mention the uniformity of the architecture. So it should be uniform. I should say that Russian and international brands like Honeywell, Siemens, and others, they recommend different production tools, but uniform architecture is a mandatory requirement. Yet another problem, poorly coordinated work of contractors and subcontractors, which affects the deadlines and the implementation time. But this should be resolved by the customer's decisions. They just need to take this function, or they just need to delegate this function to the general contractor, main contractor, to cope with it. So I think between those contractors who are specializing in their own work, they don't have a contract agreement. They have not signed a contract. So it's not very popular that they'd meet each other's requests without that contract. It happens sometimes, but very rarely. So this problem does exist. Sometimes this accumulates, this effect of postponed deadlines accumulates, and it turns into a problem. It can be resolved if the contractors coordinate their activities in a better way. If it happens, we'll definitely get a higher efficiency and better output, which will definitely minimize the costs and make us complete the work on time. This is what we have already been implementing so far, and I hope it will all see big, bright future, all these solutions. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for joining me for this session, and I hope you will send me a few questions. So we'll be waiting for them here just for a few more minutes. I hope my presentation was useful. So the moderator is saying that there are no questions. Thank you very much for your time. I hope this presentation was useful. Thank you very much for joining me. Goodbye.